for the wonderful Manglacharan. Today we are very fortunate to have with us Rukhma Prabhuji, who is from Nairobi. Prabhuji was introduced last week by Parth Prabhuji, so we all are very familiar with Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam, and please accept our humble obeisances on behalf of everybody on this group from all over the world, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Prabhuji, we are reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6.
Yes.
And chapter 6 is called Dhyana Yoga. And today we're going to be reading text 6. So, Prabhuji, we read the text 6 once, and then we do the word to word and then translation. And then if you want, we can read the purport. Otherwise, we'll hand over to you.
All right.
In the interest of time. So, Shashwin, can you read the text 6? Don't stop, just read the text 6.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bandhur atmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jita anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Avinash Prabhuji, can you read it once and we'll repeat after you, one line at a time?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Bandhur atmanastasya
Bandhur atmatmanastasya
yenat maivatmana jitah anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Avinash Prabhuji. Lata Mataji, kindly do the word to word.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Bandhu.
Bandhu.
Friend.
Friend.
Atma.
Atma.
The mind.
The mind.
Atmana.
Atmana.
Of the living entity.
Of the living entity.
Tasya.
Tasya.
Of him.
Of him.
Ena. By whom?
By whom?
Atma.
Atma.
The mind.
The mind.
Eva. Certainly. Atmana. By the living entity.
By the living
entity.
Jita.
Jitaha.
Conquered. Anatmana. Of one who has failed to control the mind.
Of one who has failed to control the mind.
Two. But. Shatrutve. Because of enmity.
Because of
enmity.
Vartida. Remains. Atma eva. The very mind. Shatruvat. As an enemy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Vishaka Mataji, can you read the translation, please? Just the translation. Okay, Vishaka Mataji is not available. Okay, I'll read.
She is here.
Okay. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Can you hear her?
Very faintly, Prabhuji.
Can you hear me?
Okay, you can read the translation.
The one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
Hare Krishna. For the purpose, because we lost halfway, I'll just read it. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Rukhma Prabhuji, should we continue with the purport or we can now hand over to you?
Mataji, you can read the purport because your language is quite clear. Please read the purport.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Purport. The purpose of practicing eightfold yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga, for sure, is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord following automatically. Hare Krishna. Over to you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So we are on the 6th chapter. As Mataji said, Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana means to meditate. Now you'll find that before we go to this verse, in the entire Bhagavad Gita, these three verses, 5, 6, and 7, speak directly about the mind. And you'll find that all of us, practically every one of us, has a problem with the mind. So these three verses are absolutely important. And for your information, this is the verse which brought me to ISKCON. Because before I came to ISKCON, I had very, very bad habits. And when I read this verse, I said I should give up my bad habits. And they all went. So to me, this is a mind opener. And it's a mind setter also, because this can set your mind. You know how powerful the mind is. So let's go to the purport and understand Srila Prabhupada's explanation. First, Srila Prabhupada says that the purpose of eightfold yoga system, eightfold means Ashtanga yoga. Ashta means eight. Ashtanga yoga means that it's a mechanical process by which you can control the mind in order to make it a friend. Because this verse says, if your mind becomes a friend, then it will become the best of your friends. And if you fail to make your mind your friend, it will become your biggest enemy. So that should always be kept in the mind. So discharging a human mission means who we are, why are we suffering, where are we going? And when you get the answer to all this, we come to realize that actually we have to prepare to go back home, back to Krishna. That is the human mission. And you can't go back home, back to Krishna if you don't have love for Krishna. So the whole mission of the yoga, the word yoga should be made very clear. Yoga means to connect yourself to Krishna. Of course, it's explained very nicely in the purport that for the Atma to meet Paramatma, or the soul to meet the super soul, this is called yoga. In other words, connecting is like a chain. Secondly, Srila Prabhupada says that if there is no mind control, there is no yoga. It can be any yoga, because there are many kinds of yogas. Hatha yoga, Ashtanga yoga, Dhyana yoga, and so on. Even Bhakti yoga, without mind control, there is no question of Bhakti yoga. But in Bhakti yoga, the advantage is, if you study Bhakti yoga very technically, all our senses are engaged in the service of Krishna. So there's no question of mind control. It automatically becomes controlled. That is the science behind Bhakti yoga. And thirdly, Srila Prabhupada explains that an uncontrolled mind can be living with your greatest enemy. For example, you are living in a house which is full of explosives, and anything can happen. Anything can blow you. So if you are an unbridled or an uncontrolled mind, it's like living in a house of explosives or riding a wild horse. If you take a wild horse and it doesn't have the reins, if you sit on it, what happens? You can be thrown anytime. So two examples should be remembered. In American language, a wild horse is called a Mustang. Or in the modern example, it's like you are in a car and you are the driver and you let go the steering. What will happen? The car can crash. So mind is like the steering. All the time you have to catch it. You may be looking left, right, on the road, maybe reading the billboard, but you never let your steering go away. So that is the third point Srila Prabhupada explains. Fourth is, understanding our constitutional position is to obey Krishna. Many people, if you ask, even if you go on the street, in Kenya we have an advantage, most people believe in God. If you go to America and some countries like Austria or Northern European countries like the Scandinavian countries, many people don't believe in God. And even in Australia, so many people don't believe in God. But in Kenya, in fact, throughout Africa, people believe in God. So when you ask, do you believe in God? They say yes. And when you ask the second question, do you obey him? Then they'll scratch their head. May not be. So just believing in God is not enough. We have to obey him. So when you obey God, that becomes a very easy instruction that by obeying God, you'll be able to perform your yoga very nicely. Fifth point, Srila Prabhupada says that an unconquered mind means allowing the mind to be dictated by the 6 inner enemies. Our mind has got 6 enemies within. You'll find that among 3 kinds of miseries, I think we had discussed earlier: Adidevik, Adibhautik, Adhyatmik. Now, one of the miseries is created by our own mind, our own body, our own senses. So if you look inside, we have 6 enemies: Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya. Kama means lust, greed. Kama, Krodha, greed. Sorry, Krodha means anger. Kama, Krodha, Moha, illusion. Greed means, Lobha. And then we have madness, Mad, and Matsarya. Matsarya means envy. So 6 enemies will dictate us if you do not conquer your mind, because they are always ready to catch you and grab you and bring you down. And this is how they become our 6 inner hidden enemies. You find that when Krishna appeared, if I can ask a question to you, how many brothers of Krishna were killed before Krishna appeared? Anybody remembers? I can ask this question to all of you. Maybe Kritika Mataji can connect you if you raise your hand. How many children were killed by Kansa? Anybody remembers?
7.
No?
7.
Yeah, there were 6 actually. The 7th one could not be killed because 7th one was Balaram, was transferred. Yeah. Now, who are those 6? According to Bhagavatam, those 6 are Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya. So there's a lesson to learn why those 6 were killed. Because without killing those 6, Balaram cannot sit in our heart. And when Balaram can't sit, Krishna can't sit in your heart. So that's a very nice way of understanding why these 6 were killed. And no sooner mind is controlled, one will abide by the laws of Krishna, who is situated in the heart of everyone. Because Krishna is in the heart of everyone. One should not think Krishna is not in the heart. Even in an evil man, even in a bad man, even in a loafer, or even in a good man, there is Krishna in the heart of each one of them. And he's the one, one simply has to hear him, which you will hear once you become devoted to Krishna. It needs a little faith. Then you'll find Krishna dictating even from inside. It's not that everyone is learned in all the Vedic scriptures. There are those who are not learned. Then who dictates them? It is Krishna who dictates them from inside. For example, Srila Prabhupada, when he used to write books, Krishna used to dictate all this. And that's why he was able to write so much of a literature which not one man can do it. It is impossible. So Krishna was dictating and he was writing. And this Srila Prabhupada revealed in one of the conversations that Krishna used to speak along with all the acharyas, and all these books were written. So if you become like Prabhupada, of course we can't become like Prabhupada, but at least we follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions. Even Krishna will dictate us. And the aim of yoga means to connect Atma to Paramatma. Now the Krishna conscious process is so good that if you simply surrender to Krishna, then everything else will follow automatically. The climax of Bhagavad Gita, or the apex verse of Bhagavad Gita, is Sarva Dharma Paritajya Mamekam Sharanabraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyo Mokshishami Ma Shucha. The translation is, give up all the varieties of religiousness, simply surrender to me. I will protect you from all the laws of karma. In other words, he will free us from all the karma. Do not fear, he says. And if you go to the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, do not fear. The meaning of Masucha means do not fear, do not worry, and do not wait. When it comes to surrender, surrender very quickly. Srila Prabhupada gives another example in his lecture, that if you are a criminal and you are in your house, and if the police people come to arrest you, then the best thing is to raise your hands up and let police take you. If you try to fool around, to run here and there, you can be shot. So when the question of surrender comes, you have to surrender immediately. If you go to Mahabharata, you'll find that as soon as Arjun told Yudhishthira Maharaj that now Krishna is gone, he's left the planet. And the first decision Yudhishthira Maharaj took was, if Krishna is not there, even we are going to leave. And in a matter of days, they installed Maharaj Parikshit as the king of Hastinapur. And the first person to leave the kingdom was Maharaj Yudhishthira. Second was Bhima, Arjun, Nakul, Sadev. And to your surprise, the other two ladies also followed, Draupadi and Subhadra. They all left. Because when it comes to surrender, you do not need to ask a question to anyone. Surrender means with your folded hands, with your head down, you simply surrender to Krishna. So a question may be asked that why did Draupadi especially did not ask Mother Kunti? She did not need to ask Kunti. Mother Kunti is the mother-in-law, and they lived in one family. Yet she did not ask on that day. She left. So when it comes to surrender, we should surrender to Krishna immediately. So when it comes to surrender, many people, they are not ready. They hesitate. For example, it is proven in ISKCON, for those people who come to ISKCON, that there are people who come to ISKCON for many, many years, but don't want to surrender. And what is the sign of surrender? The sign of surrender means you are ready to accept the process of following the 4 regulator principles and chanting 60 rounds and accepting the Guru. When you accept a Guru, it's a sign you are ready to surrender to Krishna. This is a practical way of surrendering to Krishna. The earlier you do, the better it is. And you have a right to choose your Guru. You have a right to choose a Guru who is appropriate for you, with whom you can communicate. These days communication is easy because of technology. So earlier you surrender, the better it is. So those who are already surrendered, means initiated, can be considered to be fortunate people. But the rest depends on how well they keep up the process. So these are the points Srila Prabhupada is explaining. Now, let's go to a practical way of understanding this verse. How to make your mind a friend. And if you don't make your mind a friend, then what happens? For example, I do not know about Eldoret, but in Nairobi, they keep a sale, sale in a shop, in which sale means they reduce the prices. Now, when there is a sale, people rush. And many times in a sale, you may buy up things which you don't want to buy. And then later on, you regret, why did I buy it? In the similar way, we all become attracted to sense objects very quickly. So in Sanskrit, there are two words, Shreya and Preya. Preya means something which you like very quickly, and later you regret. Shreya means you don't like, but later on, after accepting, you'll actually enjoy it. In the devotional service, one of the main things which we have to do is to wake up early and chant Hare Krishna. Nobody likes this. Nobody likes to wake up early. But that is the Shreya. Children don't want to do their homework, they want to play. They like prayer. Prayer means playing. But when it's time to do your homework or revising, that is Shreya. So I hope you are clear with the word Shreya and prayer. So devotional service is Shreya, not prayer. Whereas sense enjoyment is prayer. Prayer means you want to enjoy it. Who doesn't want to watch a cricket match? Who doesn't want to watch a movie? Who does not like to eat nice, tasty food in a restaurant? Everybody likes this. But who likes to eat only prasad? Who likes to wake up early in the morning? Or who likes to sit down quietly and chant Hare Krishna? People don't like. So you can compare what is prayer and what is Shreya. Prayer means immediate happiness and regrets later. Shreya means immediately painful, but later on, enjoyment. Because devotional service is full of enjoyment. So, in the similar way, all our senses get attracted. For example, there are 5 examples given in the scriptures. A fish always keeps the mouth open. And because the mouth is always open, it gets hooked by a fisherman. If the mouth was closed, it would have been a problem. That means the tongue is always open. The fish, of course, may not have a tongue. But if you notice a fish swimming, the mouth is always open. And a deer gets cheated or gets bound by a hunter. Because what a hunter does, he plays music. Most hunters, they know how to play a flute. And they play a flute in the forest and all the deers come very close. They'll tie up the deer and take them home. So deer, the weakness is the ears. Just like the fish, the weakness was the mouth. An elephant gets attracted by the touch of a female elephant. And often a female elephant is trained by a hunter to take the elephant to a pit where the elephant is going to fall. And a moth, everybody knows a moth, yeah? It looks like a butterfly, but it's not a butterfly. Wherever it sees fire, it wants to rush. And what happens? It dies. And a bee likes sweet smell of the flower. But there are some flowers, when the bee sits inside, and then in the evening, they close and the bee gets trapped. So I give you 5 examples for the tongue, for the ear, for the touch, for the sight, and for the smell. That this actually drags our mind very far away. Because the mind is the main sense. You'll find in the 15th chapter, Krishna says that Mame basu jivaloke jivabhuta sanatana manasastani indriyani prakritishtani karshati. The meaning is, all living entities are my part and parcels. Having come to this world, they struggle with 6 senses, including the mind. Now, what are the 6 senses? The sense related to the tongue, ears, touch, sight, smell, and the 6th is the mind. The mind is the king of the senses, because all the senses are connected to the mind. So in Bhakti Yoga, we have the advantage that if all our senses are used in the service of Krishna, they become purified. So the question of controlling the mind does not come. That's why Bhakti Yoga is much, much easier. I would say 1,000 times easier compared to Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is difficult because Ashtanga Yoga, from the very beginning, one has to control his mind. Whereas in Bhakti Yoga, scientifically, we use all our senses to, what do you call, engage it in the service of Krishna. Now, let's say, how does Eightfold Yoga system apply in our Krishna consciousness? So if you have some pen and a notebook, you can write it down, because this you may not be knowing it. Now, Eightfold Yoga system is 8 things: Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Now, in our case, Eightfold system is also working. How? Yam means don'ts. There are things we don't do. And these are the 4 regulator principles: no meeting, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. These are known as don'ts. Niyam means do. That is chanting your 16 rounds, or whatever number of rounds you're chanting. But niyam means according to your promise given to Krishna or to your guru. You must chant those prescribed number of rounds. That is called niyam. Asan means when you're chanting, you sit with a nice posture so that your body is relaxed. You can breathe in very nicely and you don't go to sleep. That is called asan. Next is called pranayam. Pranayam means you have to breathe in and breathe out so that your body remains blood flowing and you can chant very nicely. Because if you are sitting, we're leaning on a wall or leaning on some column, there's a tendency you can go to sleep. So pranayam is a necessity. Pratyahara means to remove things which come into the mind. For example, when you're chanting, I can tell you that so many things happen in the mind. You may start making a plan of your day. Some worries may come in. Then you may be hurt by somebody, or you may be made happy by somebody. All these things happen, especially when you're chanting. And these things happen when you don't chant early morning. When you try to chant in the daytime, these things happen. And you have to push them out. How? Pratyahara is done by hearing the Mahamantra. So when you're chanting, you are supposed to hear the Mahamantra. And when you think the mind is too stubborn, then you chant loudly. You chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You speak loudly and you push it away. Now many of you may ask that why are we prescribed to chant Hare Krishna? So you'll find that the sound is the most powerful element. If you go to the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that the world was created from sound. And many of us know that the first sound was Om. Yeah? From sound came the sky. Sound is called Sabda. From the sky to hold the sound, Krishna created wind. That's called Vayu. Okay? Now, Sabda is just a sound. Vayu means you can feel. That is how feeling was done. Then he created fire, in which he added a form. Then he created water, he added taste. And then he created earth, in which he added the smell. So if you go to these 5 elements, the origin is the sound. That's why sound of the Hare Krishna mantra is most important when you are chanting Hare Krishna. Then you'll find that anyone who's been chanting for at least for some years, he will agree that while chanting, don't hear anything except the sound of Hare Krishna mantra. Each syllable, 16 syllables. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Next we go to Dharana. Dharana means trying to place our mind at the feet of Krishna. Because Dharana means to keep it situated in one place. That is called Dharana. Dhyana means seeing the beautiful form of Krishna. In the Brahma Samhita, the form of Krishna is given. Venum kavantam maravindam dala yaksham barahavatam samsadi sundarangam kandarpakoti kamaniya. Then Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. The beautiful form of Krishna is given. It's a bluish boy holding a flute in his hand, with a peacock feather in his hand, standing with a tribang as shape. On that form, if you meditate, or if you can meditate, That is called dhyana. And if you can do that, you'll come to samadhi. Samadhi means you'll be with Krishna, even while chanting. So even while in Krishna consciousness, you may be chanting, you may be hearing, you may be remembering. All these 8 things are going on perpetually, or we can say in a sequence. The better devotee you are, or a more fixed devotee you are, you will always remain concentrated in Krishna, or you can't forget Krishna. You try to tell a devotee who is very experienced that, okay, you forget Krishna today for 1 hour. He'll say it's not possible because he can't forget Krishna. Whatever he tries to do, he can't forget. No, what is more important is to follow the Guru's and the Krishna's instruction. Actually, they are none different. And carry them out. Whatever the Guru says, you do it. For example, Srila Prabhupada was told in the very first meeting by his own Guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, that I want young people like you to preach this message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the English-speaking world. And he did it. Just one instruction. He kept it for the whole lifetime. Before even starting ISKCON, he prepared it. He made his muscles very strong, we can say. And he prepared the mission. And then he set the mission out. Of course, he started in India with the League of Devotees. It didn't work very much. But in America, he got the success. So you'll find that every Sishya or every disciple has firm faith in the Guru and the Guru's instruction, which may seem to be maybe just one sentence, but it makes a big difference in the disciple's life. So to follow the Guru's instruction, and you may ask the question, what about all of us? All of us are the general mass of people. Then there's one instruction for all of us is to surrender to Krishna. Sarva dharma paritajya. For your reference, chapter 18, verse number 66. He says, you'll find that the whole Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses. Each verse has been sung. There's a tune, it's called Mita. Like I can sing one and you'll find it's very sweet. I'll take one verse from 15th chapter. I think it's verse number 5. Nirmanna moha jitachanga dosha adhyatma ditya vinivarta kama dvendve vibhukta sukatukha sabnai dvendve yamukta paramam kadatat. So this is the mita for that verse. But when you go to the 1866, there is no mita. It's a command. Sarva dharma paritajya mamekam shravraja. It means it's an order for all of us to surrender to Krishna. So what should we do? Earlier in the 5th verse, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, Mana eva manushyanam karanam baddha mokshaya bandhaya vishaya ngo muktaya nirvi shayam manam. For man, mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. But it goes further, it says, mind absorbed in the sense objects is the cause of bondage, and the mind detached from sense objects is the cause of liberation. So you'll find that always our mind is trapped in certain sense object, either to do with our eyes, our nose, our ears, our skin, or our mouth. Somewhere our mind is stuck. For example, those who are younger in their age, maybe less than 20, it's natural that if a boy sees an attractive girl, he can't forget. So she becomes a sense object for the boy. And the girl sees a handsome boy, she can't forget. It's an example I'm giving you. Or you hear some movie song or any other song, it means that tune has gone into your ear and you can't forget it. That means that has become the sense object. Some taste, some nice food you may have eaten at your friend's house, you might have found a taste and you can't forget that taste. So I'm giving examples of sense objects. So if you remain attached to your sense objects, then you become bonded. Who should be the sense object of your life? Ashraya and Vishaya. Object of our life should be Krishna. Object and subject. Let's call Ashraya and Vishaya. Should be Krishna. And that is the meaning of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, before Krishna says Sarva Dharma Paritajya, one verse before that Krishna says that Man mana bhava mad bhakto mad jaji mam namaskuru. 4 things he says. Do these 4 things. And what are the 4 things? Is always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and bow down to me. So before you surrender, you have to do these 4 things. And for your information, Man mana bhava mad bhakto is the only verse repeated twice in Bhagavad Gita. No verse is repeated twice. If you go to the 9th chapter, the final verse, it says Man mana bhava mad bhakto. And the climax of Bhagavad Gita, it says Man mana bhava. So our acharyas, our guru says that this is the main verse of Gita. And this verse can also be considered in an English language or modern language as a gateway to Gita. If you do these 4 things, it means you want Krishna. And you'll go to Krishna or you'll arrive at Krishna. But you have to do these 4 things. I hope you remember that. Think of Krishna, become his devotee, worship him, and take refuge in him or bow down to him. 4 things if you do in your daily life, you'll never go wrong. That's why here it says that the same mind can become your friend and the same mind can become your biggest enemy. Now let's make a conclusion out of it. If you are engaged in sense, if your mind is trapped in the sense objects and you want to enjoy your sense objects, then you are living with an enemy. Your mind is your enemy. Same mind, when it is used in the service of Krishna, your mind will become your friend. So in the next words it says, for the one who has conquered the mind, Paramatma is already reached. In other words, you have already got Krishna if you got a mind control. So mind control is not easy. It will be explained in the same chapter later on, after verse number 34 onwards, where Arjun will raise a question that you are telling me to control the mind, but the mind is very strong, obstinate, and restless. I find it impossible. So Krishna says, yes, I agree that mind cannot be controlled. However, it can be controlled by practice and detachment. So what is the practice? Practice means Krishna consciousness. Detachment means to detach ourselves from sense objects or anything unfavorable in our service of Krishna. We should stay away from there. So it says here that, now go back a little back to the 3rd chapter, verse number 42. So at least you notice where is your mind. So it says that the working senses are superior to dull matter. In other words, if we have this body has a value because it has senses. If the body has no senses, it has no value. So higher than the body or matter is senses. Higher than the senses is the mind. And still higher than the mind is intelligence. And higher than intelligence is the soul. And naturally higher than the soul is super soul. So if you see this grading, or we can say the ladder, the mind is like almost halfway. But those which are lower, the senses, if they go out of control, they can drag the mind far away. So in Bhakti Yoga or in Krishna consciousness, we don't allow our senses to go out of control. When the senses are in control, the mind will stay in control. That is the meaning of this verse. You can refer to 3rd chapter, verse number 42. So far we have discussed about how to make friends with your mind. And the easiest way to make friends with your mind is to regularly hear about Krishna and regularly chant about Krishna's name, form, pastimes, qualities, and abode. By these 2 processes, you can easily control your mind. Not a problem. But if you are weak-minded, then you have to discipline yourself. Just like in the 2nd chapter, Krishna, before delivering the message of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually becomes what he calls, he chastises Arjuna that you are talking like a pandita, but you do not have any knowledge of a pandit. Pandit means a Brahmin, because a pandit does not lament for the living or dead. He is speaking big things. In other words, we have to chastise our mind if our mind is weak. In other words, Krishna also says, Kashmalam. Kashmalam means Where is all this dirt coming to your mind? Remove that dirt. Stand up and fight. Yet Arjuna was not ready. That's why Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna. In the same way, Bhagavad Gita is being spoken to us so that we can keep our mind clear and understand the reality. After all, what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? Is to free us from all illusion and understand the reality. So these are the points mentioned here. In short, if our mind is given to Krishna, as I had explained, I think even last time I had explained, giving the example of Ambarish Maharaj, who used to, in the very first line of his prayer says, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Bindayo. That he used to give his mind to always think of Krishna. So if you can think of Krishna all the time, then you are a fortunate person. Which Prabhupada says even in the purport of Man Mana Bhavavat Bhakto. Anyone who can see Krishna within his mind and think about Krishna, beautiful Krishna, then that's a fortunate person. And anyone who can't think of Krishna is not unfortunate, but he can try and become a fortunate person, which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu calls him a Bhagyavan Jiva. Bhagyavan Jiva means a fortunate soul. So how to become a fortunate soul is to take the shelter of a Guru and Krishna, both of them. When you get the mercy from two sides, then this mind control becomes very, very easy. Hare Krishna. The time is already 8:45. And if you have any questions, any doubts, please ask.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a in-depth explanation of this text. Are there any questions? If there, kindly unmute because there are no questions on the chat. Till people are thinking about the questions, maybe I can ask a question, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mother, go ahead.
Prabhuji, you said that you should obey Krishna, but I feel love is a more powerful quality to have. Love for Krishna is more. If I had to ask one thing, I think I would ask that God give me the power to love you. Because in my own experience, like it is very easy for me to get up at 5 o'clock if I have to get up early to make lunch for my daughter. Because I love her. I want her to eat prasadam. I want her to eat my food. So I will get up at 5 o'clock or even at 4:30 or 4 to cook for her so she can take when she goes at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
But it is very difficult for me to get up. I mean, the day she doesn't have to go, then I say, oh, I can sleep. But for me, I would have thought that I should have said that, okay, I don't have to make her tiffin, but let me chant that time. But then I realized maybe I don't love Krishna so much that I can give up that 2 hours of sleep. So more than obey, would it be love for Krishna?
See, love supersedes everything. For love, there is no rules and regulation. Now, when you say love, it means real love, not lust. Lust looks like love, but that is not love. For example, in our community or in any community, you find a man telling a woman, I love you. Is that really love or is it lust? So when you say love, it means pure, in which there's no conditions. So bhakti yoga means love. The actual word bhakti means to render service with love. Now, when you're rendering service with love, you're already following, you're already obeying Krishna. So there's no question that is this love good or no? It is good. Because when you say you're preparing prasadam for your daughter, it is already devotional service. Because most mothers, they prepare lunch for their daughters or for their children and not offer to Krishna. But if you're offering to Krishna, it means love is already there. You may not be knowing that it is love, but it is love. And to love our children, to love our husband, to love our family, to love our country, there's nothing wrong. But it should be real love, not what you call swartha. Swartha means we don't do it for a gain. It should be done with full heart. Because when you say love, it means there is some emotion, some feelings inside, isn't it? So Krishna also says that, now if you go to Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 9th canto, there's a story of Durvasha and Ambarisha. All of us know this story, that Durvasha tried to destroy Ambarisha, and Krishna protected King Ambarisha by protecting it with his chakra. You know chakra, the wheel. And this chakra followed him everywhere until he had to come to Krishna. And Krishna said, you and I can't help you. Go back to my devotee. If he pardons you, then this chakra can be freed. But in that 5 verses, one of the words spoken by Krishna is that I love my devotee loves me. In other words, I'm the heart of my devotee, and my devotee is mine. I don't know anyone, and my devotee does not know anyone. Beautiful verse. If you get time, you can read this verse. Beautiful. I can send it to you, maybe on a WhatsApp, the verse number, exact verse number. Beautiful verse. Now, if you really know about Bhakti, it's all about pure love, no lust. For example, I give you some examples of love. Out of love, Krishna rode the chariot of Arjuna. Is it right or not? Out of love, because he had love for Arjuna. Out of love, he protected Draupadi, because he had love for Draupadi. Out of love, Krishna protected Gajendra, the elephant. He came instantly and protected him. Out of love, Krishna protected Prahlad Maharaj at every step of his life. These are some of the examples. So when you say Bhakti Yoga, it's a question of pure love. Now, as you read Bhagavad Gita, then your love will be purified. By constant reading and hearing Bhagavatam, your love becomes purified. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives an example that if you take a sugar cane is sweet, whether you see the bottom or the top. If you crush it, you get sugarcane juice. Then comes the molasses, then comes the sugar, then comes the sugar candy. Now, sugar candy, just a small piece, is full of sweetness. In the similar way, our love in the beginning may be just a sentimental emotion, but as we read the scriptures, it becomes purified. And it becomes so purified that really speaking, you can't live without Krishna. Like a fish cannot live without water. That will be your position. That will prove that you have love for Krishna. I think, is that answer clear, Mataji?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions in the group?
Frankly speaking, this subject is not an easy subject. Mind. In the Bhagavatam, we are spoken about mind again and again. So I'll give you some tips before we end up. How to control the mind. First of all, you should know that sometimes the mind will compel you or impel you. So you are the one to judge whether should I do it or should I not do it. And you'll find that so many desires come in your mind and you want to fulfill all of them. But if they are not according to the scriptures, Krishna's wishes, then better put a bucket of salt in your mind and bring it down. And the final way to control the mind, because mind is predictably dangerous and dangerously unpredictable. You can never know what mind will say. Today the mind will say, this is good. Tomorrow the mind will say, no, this is not good. So whom do you trust? You always trust Krishna. So Jat Bharat's final instruction is, neglect your mind. Neglect your mind, obey the mind of Krishna. And what is the mind of Krishna? This is the mind of Krishna, Bhagavad Gita. Because this is where he's put his mind. He wants us to do the way it is here, by which we will be walking with Krishna all the time. Hare Krishna. And have a nice Krishna conscious day. I mean night.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna. Avinash Prabhuji, you've unmuted. Did you have a question?
Oh, I just wanted to make a general point, and probably Prabhuji can clarify. It's just a point about a balance, really, because
Yes.
we live in a material world. We have to go to work, sometimes we have to go to family and have food. So, sometimes I don't know whether we should come across as very strict when we go and say, is this a prasad offered to Krishna, or whenever you eat something, or whenever you go out with friends. I mean, we don't normally go out, but occasionally when we have to go out, how do we actually create that balance?
Okay, a very good question. Srila Prabhupada answers this question, that sometimes we go to give association, sometimes we go to take association. When you go to devotee's house or you come to temple, you take association. When you go to your loved ones, you give your association. So you don't ask a question, have you offered the food? Never do that. It's the biggest mistake you do. But whatever has been prepared nicely, eat it. Don't break their sentiments. Because people are innocent. Generally, general mass of people is very innocent. And then if you start putting your rules and regulations, they're not going to like you. But you are out. You are representing Krishna, you're representing Prabhupada. So of course you should eat what is vegetarian. You don't just eat anything. If it is vegetarian, then you can even tell them, okay, let's say Hare Krishna and then we eat. Nobody will mind. Nobody will mind. But asking question like, have you offered? Have you done this? No, it's not the right thing to ask. Same thing, not just eating. It can be even discussing. Sometimes you may have to sit with people and they'll discuss so many things. So at that time, better not speak, but maybe just hear. Hear if it is favorable. If it's not favorable, then you, what they say, put it in this year and remove it from this year. Don't keep it in your mind. So in all situations, you have to be neutral and be kind. Devotee means a kind person. You can't preach if there's no kindness in your heart. If you want to teach someone, you have to be kind. Prabhupada says that if you want to become a friend with a man who's walking with a dog, then instead of greeting the man, first you pat the dog. That will please the man. This is an instruction given. So when you say you've been invited to somebody's house, let's say you went to a marriage. Sometimes you have to go to marriage. So at that time, take the food which is favorable. Like if it is vegetarian, just eat that food. But at that time, don't try to make a big, we can say, a big thing out. Oh, not offered to Krishna. Oh, you put onions in there. Of course, you don't take food which is onions. You take food which doesn't have onions inside. So at that time, don't try to show that you're a big devotee. That will put off everyone. But we are there to give them association by showing your kindness that, oh, I wish we had offered food. I remember one of my friend's daughter got married. Imagine he's a Jain, but he has faith in Krishna. So when his first daughter got married, and we went to Mahajanwari, I don't know if you know what is a Mahajanwari. It's a community place, a very big place, and maybe around 7,000 people had come. Now imagine the wife of that person told me that before this food is given out, please come and offer to Krishna. And I had to offer to Krishna. I had to go with tulsi leaves, put it in the plate. There was no picture of Krishna. Somehow or other, my keyring had a picture of Krishna. So I put the keyring there. I offered to Krishna, and she was very pleased. So it depends. If people are favorable, you can do it. If not, then at least we can chant Hare Krishna before eating. Does that answer your question, Prabhu?
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, that confirms my understanding. But it's
For example, also like you are traveling, you may be given food which has not been offered to Krishna, but you can't help it. You may be given a vegetarian sandwich, just take it. Or maybe a glass of juice or fruit or nuts, take it. At that time, you don't try to ask 1,000 questions. Why like this? Who has prepared this? Who is the cook? That is not our business. We will be wasting our time.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're saying something I interrupted inside.
No, and sometimes devotees says you have to say names of Vishnu 3 times before eating if something is like that. Or I don't know whether that is practiced, usual practice to say Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu before you. Sri Vishnu, Sri
Vishnu,
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 Sri
Vishnu is good for purification.
Yeah.
For purification of your hands, for your mind. But I would suggest that at least 3 mantras should be spoken. One is the Panch Tattva mantra, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Sadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta. And then Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad, there is Prabhupada mantra and the Hare Krishna mantra. If these three can be spoken, even within the mind, doesn't have to be loud.
Yeah.
Within your mind, you speak, at least you're purifying by your sight what you are going to eat.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking the question.
Prabhuji, we have 1 more minute, so I will contribute as well. So I want to glorify my African colleagues. So I work in a research institute and I work with doctors. And when we go out for lunch, so in our workplace, there is a place where all the doctors eat. And I learned from them. So when just before they partake food, even whatever, they might be eating chicken, they might be eating beef, but they'll close their eyes and pray.
Yes, that's the Christian way.
Yeah, so that's the Christian way. So even they are praying, and
yes,
I learned from them that this is a good thing to do. So
you'll find that there's a lot of connection between Christianity, especially Catholics and our Christian consciousness. A lot of almost similar. Even they will not eat without praying. I have many Christian friends, and I know that they will not eat anything. And sometimes even when they will come to the temple, they are really happy that you are following our method properly. So it's always good to appreciate others' religious beliefs and sentiments if you go out. And like in a profession of yours, you may be meeting so many different kinds of people. So at that time, best thing to do is to remember Krishna if you can't speak anything. Okay?
Okay, Hare Krishna. Are there any other burning questions? If there are no questions, we meet tomorrow. Tomorrow, Prashanta Mataji will be coming.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Rukhma Prabhuji, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Accept our humble obeisances. Sorry, because I am traveling. Prabhuji, one thing is that in Ashtanga Yoga Paddhati, there are 2 things, Dhyana and Samadhi. So can you please describe what is the difference between Dhyana and Samadhi?
Okay. I just spoke on it. Let me speak to you. Dhyana means to think of Krishna. Meditate on Shyam Sundar. In our ISKCON, we meditate on Krishna's beautiful form, standing in a shape, holding a flute in his hand, bluish color boy with a peacock feather on the head. If you can meditate on that, that is called Dhyana. Samadhi means to fully concentrate on it. When your mind is fully in Krishna, in other words, you actually feel the presence. That is called Dhyana. Dhyana means to meditate. Samadhi means to concentrate. Like in a day-to-day life, I don't know if you had a love affair. In a love affair, a boy wants to meet a girl, and before she has even appeared, the love is already coming out in his heart. And when he sees the girl, he feels a kind of a dhyana. And when he actually sits next to the girl, he is in samadhi. That's a mundane example I'm giving you. Same principle is there in bhakti also. I hope you're able to follow. I know you are from India and a very strict person, that you may not be having such an affair, not like us in Kenya. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
और कुछ पूछना है आपको?
No, Prabhuji. Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. The rest, I think you can ask, what is the name? Kritika Mataji. I had explained all the eightfold Ashtanga Yoga in our Krishna consciousness. Yam, Niyam, Dhyan, Dharana, and so on. Up to Samadhi. Okay? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Okay,
Prabhuji. I've taped this and I'll be putting it on YouTube. So anybody else,
no problem.
lots of devotees who has missed today's class, so they will be watching it later on.
Okay. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare.
Thank you, Rukhma Das Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo.
Hare Krishna. Tomorrow we'll have Prashanta Mataji, so it will start early, 6 o'clock Eldoret time, and for London it will be 3 o'clock. She'll be joining us from Vrindavan. So kindly please attend in time. Shashwin, 6 o'clock tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vivek Prabhuji, these days you don't talk. Vivek Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, we have been
Actually,
missing your association.
I'm in Congo. No, actually, I'm in Congo now.
Oh,
And network here is very unreliable. Yeah.
okay,
So
okay.
that's why I was missing classes also for a long time.
Okay, okay.
And yesterday I tried to speak, but by the time I spoke, the network was very weak. I could not connect.
Okay.
So it is like better I listen.
Okay,
When I'm
Prabhuji.
in better position, I listen.
Okay, Prabhuji, but you can always write on the chat if there are questions and I can read out for you.
Yeah, because I am getting disconnected in between.
You are getting
And
disconnected.
I'm not, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
So
Prabhuji,
I'll
try to
my
join
best,
as
and
much.
if anything,
Yeah, try to join as much
Yeah.
as possible. Tomorrow is Prashanta Mataji. I know you really like her. So please join in.
when you yeah, what I'm feeling nowadays, when you connect for a few days and then you disconnect, so you again go down, then you have to bring your mind again to the questions and learn a little more. So I was climbing a hill and I went down, and then I have to start from zero again. So it will
Prabhuji,
take
we
some
all
time.
are at
Excuse me for
ground
that.
zero level. Prabhuji, we are all at zero level. So we
Yeah.
are with you. We are at the same position. We'll climb pole pole and take you with
Now
us.
again, I have to start, start getting your team. That's what I'm doing nowadays. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm ending the session.